Welcome to Thoughts and Theories. There is a question that has followed humanity since the first cities, the first kings, and the first armies were born. Why do humans love conflict? Why do we return to war again and again, even after we have seen the pain that it brings? At first, the answer seems simple. People want power. They want land. They want resources. But if it was only about resources, then every war would be about oil or gold or territory, and history shows something far more complex. Humans often fight even when the rewards are unclear, or when peace would benefit them more. This means that conflict is not just political. It is deeply psychological and philosophical. One way to look at this is to understand the human mind before civilization existed. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small tribes. Life was dangerous. Food was unpredictable. Other tribes were rivals. Studies in anthropology show that early humans saw conflict as a method of survival. If another group threatened your land or your food supply, then fighting was sometimes the only choice. These ancient pressures shaped how the human brain evolved. The parts of the brain that deal with fear, danger, and quick decision-making became strong because they helped people survive. This means that even in modern life, people still carry instincts that were built in an environment very different from our world. But survival is only one layer. There is also the emotional attraction to conflict that philosophers have described for centuries. Many thinkers believe that humans feel alive when they face struggle. It gives them a sense of meaning. If you look at stories from old cultures, you find heroes who go into battle. Epic tales from Greece, China, and the Middle East are filled with warriors who seek glory or honor. They do not fight only to survive. They fight because conflict gives them a purpose that ordinary life does not provide. Even today, people admire characters in movies who stand in front of danger. This does not mean people want real war, but it shows that the human mind is drawn to the idea of challenge and confrontation. Another important point is identity. Humans are social creatures. We form groups based on religion, nationality, language, or ideology. These groups give us a sense of belonging, but they also create divisions. When people strongly identify with a group, they start seeing those outside the group as different or even threatening. Psychology researchers call this the in-group and out-group effect. It explains why people quickly form loyalties and rivalries even in harmless environments. One famous experiment placed random students into two groups with meaningless labels. Very quickly, the students began favoring their own group and discriminating against the other. This experiment showed that humans do not need a serious reason to divide. They divide naturally. Now imagine this instinct on the scale of nations. A leader only needs to give a simple narrative, and millions can feel united against another group. This ability for identity to turn into conflict is one of the strongest forces in human history. It explains wars between empires. It explains conflicts between ideologies. It explains why even in modern times with education and global communication, societies can still fall back into hostility. Another reason humans are drawn to conflict is competition. Throughout history, competition has been linked with progress. Sports exist because humans love to measure their strength and skill against others. In politics, competitors fight for power. In business, companies compete for markets. In science, researchers compete to discover new ideas. Competition influences every part of life. But competition can easily turn into conflict when people feel threatened or disrespected. Many wars began not because of survival, but because leaders felt humiliation or fear of losing status. Pride is a powerful force, more powerful than money or territory in many cases. There is also the role of fear. Fear is one of the oldest human emotions. It can push people to fight even when they do not want to. If a nation believes another nation might attack in the future, it may launch a war first to avoid being vulnerable. This is called the security dilemma. Ironically, Two sides that want peace can end up fighting because they fear each other. Imagine two people walking at night. Both are scared. Both think the other might attack. One picks up a stick for protection. The other sees that and assumes aggression. Suddenly, both are prepared for a conflict that neither actually wants. This logic has shaped many wars in history, including conflicts between superpowers. But if humans love conflict, why do they also dream of peace? Why do so many movements throughout history fight for unity, justice, or nonviolence? The answer is that humans do not only love conflict, they love meaning. And conflict often creates a moment where meaning becomes clear. People know what they are fighting for. They know who supports them. They feel connected to something larger than themselves. Peace is beautiful, but it can also feel empty when people do not know what their purpose is. Conflict fills that gap. It gives people a mission. This is why philosophers often say that humans are not addicted to violence. They are addicted to significance. Technology added a new dimension to all of this. In the past, wars were limited by distance. Armies moved slowly. Communication was limited. But with modern technology, conflict can spread rapidly. At the same time, technology magnifies emotions. People see images of war instantly. Fear and anger spread across screens within minutes. Technology has not created conflict, but it has made humans more aware of it and has increased the emotional reaction to it. This leads to more tension and more misunderstandings. Take the example of the First World War. It began with a single assassination, but nations reacted with extreme fear and pride. Alliances triggered automatic aggression. Leaders felt their identity and status were threatened. The war that followed destroyed millions of lives. Yet when it ended, the Second World War emerged from the anger and humiliation that followed. This pattern proves that conflict feeds on emotions far more than logical calculation. There is also the harsh truth that some people benefit from conflict. Throughout history, rulers used war to gain power or to distract the public from internal problems. When societies are divided, leaders can manipulate those divisions to strengthen their own authority. This is not a flaw of the people alone. It is also a flaw of leadership, and it shows that conflict is sometimes encouraged rather than simply emerging from human nature. But the most interesting point is something many philosophers agree on. Humans also have the capacity to rise above conflict. The same brain that reacts to danger can also analyze and reflect. Humans can question their own beliefs. They can control their impulses. They can choose cooperation over confrontation. Peace movements in history show this clearly. Whether it was civil rights activists refusing to return violence with violence, or communities finding ways to coexist after centuries of conflict, humans repeatedly show they can break the pattern. This means conflict is not destiny. It is a possibility shaped by instincts and emotions, but not an unchangeable rule. The real challenge is understanding those instincts rather than being controlled by them. If conflict gives meaning, then societies need to create meaningful paths that do not require violence. If identity creates division, then people need to learn that identities can overlap and coexist. If fear triggers aggression, then communication and transparency are the tools that reduce fear. The question of why humans love conflict is not meant to justify war. It is meant to understand the roots of human behavior. When we know why something happens, we can change the conditions that lead to it. Humanity has the knowledge and the power to create cooperation. But cooperation requires awareness. It requires understanding where our instincts come from and how they influence our choices. In the end, conflict reflects the human struggle between emotion and reason, between tribal instincts and universal values, between fear and courage. It shows how powerful the human mind is and how dangerous it can be when emotions overwhelm clarity. If humanity wants to move beyond war, it must learn to understand itself. Only then can we choose a path that is based not on instinct but on wisdom.